up on Sports Weekly. Oh, Canada. Toronto revels in a second straight world title. We'll take you live to Toronto. Notre Dame stock climbed northward in South Bend, while Miami ran it up against Syracuse. Misunderstood and underappreciated. We'll look back at the controversial career of Eric Dickerson. Baby on board. Houston's David Williams skips a game to witness the birth of his son. We'll examine the resulting controversy. Her son may have grown, but Louise Pazienza still gets nervous when Vinny fights.
A lot of people, when they get nervous, they eat. I haven't eaten since yesterday.
Are you hungry for sports news? Sports Weekly stretches to satisfy your craving next.
Good morning, I'm Dick Schaap, and welcome to Sunday Sports Day, October 24th, 1993. 2 hours of news, views, reviews, and previews, highlights and sidelights, cheers and jeers. For only the second time in the history of baseball, a season has come to an end with a home run. And it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy than Joe Carter, who was born the year Bill Mazeroski hit his series-winning home run. Robin Roberts is with us, as usual, to guide us through our opening hour, Sports Weekly. And Robin, do you know who the pitcher was who gave up Mazeroski's home run?
Well, even though I wasn't born until the following November in 1960, I, of course, know who the Yankee pitcher was. But knowing you, Dick, you were probably there and, as always, witnessed it all for yourself firsthand.
Well, this probably comes as a great shock to you, but I was born before 1960.
Right.
And I did go to that 7th game in Pittsburgh in 1960, and I took Lenny Bruce, the comedian, the Robin Williams of his day, with me to the game, and it was the first game that Lenny Bruce ever went to, and it was the last, because after that, anything would have been anticlimactic until last night.
Until last night. Very true, Dick. All right. Last year, the Toronto Blue Jays won the World Series in 6, but it paled in comparison to last night's Game 6 at Sky Dome. I tell you what, folks, the Phillies and the Jays packed a season's worth of highlights into 6 games. Dave Stewart came out firing, striking out the first batter of the game, Lenny Dykstra, on 3 pitches. Terry Mulholland was not so fortunate. Bottom of the first, Devon White on first. Paul Molitor with a shot to right, and it almost gets out. 1-0 Jays. Devon White would score. Later in the first, it's 2-0 Jays. Roberto Alomar singles up the middle. John Olerud comes around to score. 3-0 Jays. Then top of the fourth, Darren Dalton on second. Jim Eisenreich singles to center, scoring Dalton. 3-1 Jays. Bottom of the fifth, 4-1 Jays. Molitor takes Mulholland deep to left, and this time it does get out into the upper deck. 5-1 Jays. At that point, a terrific series for that man. Dave Stewart, a 4-run cushion, but it wasn't enough. Top of the 7th, runners on first and third. Lenny Dykstra takes Stu deep to right. A 3-run shot, making it 5-4. Still, top of the 7th, Danny Cox on the hill now. Dave Hollins singles up the middle. Mariano Duncan comes around to score. It's 5-all. Still in the 7th, Al Leiter pitching with the bases loaded. Pete Incaviglia hits the first pitch deep to center, a sac fly, giving Philly a 6-5 lead. Bottom of the 9th, tension rising with Mitch Williams facing Joe Carter. Runners on first and second, and Mr. Carter goes deep to left. For only the 2nd time in World Series history, the home team wins it with a home run. And the last at bat, the Phillies go down with a gallant effort. Jays win 8-6. They're back-to-back champs. The first time the World Series was won on Canadian turf. Remember, last year, the Jays clinched in Atlanta. Dwayne Ward with a scoreless 9th for the win. Joe Carter is the hero. Paul Molitor, the MVP.
I think this turned out to be the best game in the series, the way the Phillies came back. And, of course, Joe's dramatics there in the bottom of the 9th inning. Just a very, very sweet win and a great moment for myself after waiting all this time. I even got a little emotional when we were in the pile there, but more than anything, you got to appreciate this feeling because you never know when it might come along again.
There was one thing I learned from this series, that's Paul Molitor can hit. That's as good a team on paper as you're going to get, but we got by them, and like I said, Toronto just had too much offensive weapons. The one thing did occur to me, I did look up and say the 7th inning, I better do something. It's time.
You know, it's not going to sink in until probably maybe 3 or 4 months from now, but I'll take my time and see what it's like.
These guys are defending world champions, you know. We battled our ass off against them. We had some great games. We had pitchers duels. We had football scores and everything else. Yeah, it was a pretty exciting series.
That's a vast understatement. 16 years in the majors, 15 of them all with the Brewers, 15 of them, I should say, with the Brewers. And Paul Molitor will finally get all the respect and attention he richly deserves. He is the first to have 2 doubles, 2 triples, and 2 homers in the same World Series. He had an incredible postseason, scoring 17 runs while driving in 13. MVP numbers any way you look at it, and he has no doubt secured a spot for himself in Cooperstown. I'd like to recognize our 3 MVPs for getting up early after a late night: Dan Patrick, Peter Gammons, and Dave Campbell. Forgive me, Dan, if I don't feel too sorry for you this morning. You guys witnessed quite a game last night, which, of course, made all the headlines.
Thank you, Robin. This is how the Toronto newspapers reported Joe Carter's dramatics. The Toronto Sun and the Toronto Star. OK Blue Jays, back-to-back world titles. Welcome back to Sky Dome. About 10.5 hours after we last digested Joe Carter's dramatic game-winning home run in Game 6. Seems to be a little bit of controversy as far as what kind of pitch Joe Carter actually hit. Joe says it was a slider. Mitch Williams says it was definitely a fastball. One thing we do definitely know, it ended Game 6 in one of the more dramatic World Series that we've been fortunate to cover. Dave Campbell, Peter Gammons joining me. Let's start with you, Peter. Paul Molitor. He's got 2 years left on his contract here in Toronto, but this was a storybook ending for him.
Oh, it really was, Dan, and it really is so wonderful. That scene with the tears in his eyes, just, it showed what a feeling this man has for the game, and I think it'll mean an awful lot when people like Robin Yount and Don Mattingly see it, people who never quite got that chance. But, you know, offensively, he completely dominated this postseason. Robin mentioned some of the numbers, but his capability of hitting in every style. Here he hits the home run. When he hits behind runners, he can hit and run. He is the best base runner in the game, par none. And all that came to the front in this postseason, and it's a wonderful thing for a guy that played as hard when the Brewers were 30 games out as he did when the Blue Jays were winning the World Series. Also played first base, also played third base. Admitted he was very scared at third base and also the DH. Let's look at Lenny Dykstra. Had the Phillies won, he would have been your MVP, and he certainly made a good run even in defeat. What struck you the most about Dykstra's whole performance?
Dan, I think just the overall aura he brought to the ballpark. I think back to that Game 4. I mean, nobody could have done more than that man did to try to win a ball game. He scored 4 runs, hit 2 home runs. The 4 runs he scored were 1 more than Pete Rose scored in 11 World Series games with the Phillies. Last night, it looked like the champagne was on ice. The Jays had it all wrapped up, and all of a sudden, the Phillies got off the deck for one last shot. And in the 7th inning, with 2 guys on, I know you and I were sitting here, and Peter, and we're just going, no, he couldn't. He couldn't possibly do it. He could not possibly do it. And he did it. It was unbelievable. It really was. I mean, this guy is, Bill Conlon had a great line, I thought, after Game 4. And the same thing held true last night. He said that Lenny Dykstra was on stage getting ready to play Hamlet, but unfortunately a script to Farewell to Arms showed up.
We've got plenty more on this entire morning, most of it from Sky Dome here, as they're beginning to celebrate. Believe it or not, these folks, I don't know if they stayed from last night or they showed up early. The parade starts at 3 o'clock. It ends at 5 o'clock here in Sky Dome. So these folks have about 7 hours to wait for their heroes. And one of those heroes will be this guy. As Dick Schaap alluded to, it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. Joe Carter ends this year's World Series. For Peter and Dave, I'm Dan Patrick. Plenty more. Now back to you, Robin.
Thanks, Dan. And as you said, we will have much more on the World Series throughout the morning here on Sunday Sports Day. But for now, college football, beginning with last night's action. And Miami returned to action for the first time since losing to top-ranked Florida State 2 weeks ago. The Canes hosted Syracuse last night, sporting a new starting quarterback, sophomore Ryan Collins, who replaced Frank Costa. Miami up 21-zip in the second. Marvin Graves trying to rally the Orangemen, but he's hit by Kevin Patrick, and that is Kenny Holmes, a lineman's dream. Shelby Hill sums it up for the Orange. Miami rolls 49-0. The 54th straight victory at the Orange Bowl for the Canes. Ryan Collins completed 16 of 20 for 207 with 1 interception. The Canes with 480 yards of total offense. Marvin Graves was sacked 4 times and picked off 3 times. Out west for San Diego State, New Mexico in the second, Tim Gutierrez finds Darnay Scott. He is terrific. Bouncing off would-be tacklers, dancing his way 63 yards. Aztecs up 7-0. Then in the third, his teammate, Marshall Faulk, takes it in from 6 yards out. Aztecs up by 3, closing seconds. New Mexico with a chance to win it. But Jason Bale hooks the 35-yarder, and San Diego State holds on 20-17. Marshall Faulk gained a season-high 186 yards. The Aztecs are 6-2 overall, a perfect 4-0 in the WAC. They're tied for first with Wyoming, I should say. More college action in a moment. And a bit later here on Sunday Sports Day, more on the Toronto Blue Jays winning their 2nd straight World Series title. Joe Carter has a wonderful story to tell his future grandchildren. And it's back to campus when we come back. The marquee matchup on Saturday had Southern Cal and South Bend against the Fighting Irish. We'll have highlights and a great deal more next.
Sports Weekly is brought to you by Budweiser, fresh, pure, natural, proud to be your Bud. And by Discover Card. It pays to discover, the card that pays you back.
Back to college football. First of all, undefeated Notre Dame and Southern Cal. Lou Holtz had never lost to the Trojans, but this was the first time he faced a team coached by John Robinson. The Irish ground game simply destroyed USC. Lee Becton rumbles 70 yards for the score. He had a career-high 177 yards rushing. Irish win 31-13. They have a 15-game winning streak going. Ohio State at Purdue, 21-0 Buckeyes in the second. Then Marlon Kerner with the interception at the goal line, and he returns it all the way for 6. Ohio State wins 45-24. They play Penn State next. In the SEC, Bama at Ole Miss. David Palmer in at quarterback for the Tide. Palmer displays his arm, hitting Kevin Lee with a great catch. This 56-yard play. Palmer did a solid job replacing the injured Jay Barker, and that play set up this. Sherman Williams with the 8-yard score. Bama wins 19-14. Arizona displaying typical defense against Washington State. Cougar quarterback Sean Deeds throws into the end zone, but he is picked off by Tony Bowie. The game came down to the final play. Washington State trailing by 3. The coach's son, Aaron Price, just barely misses a 49-yard field goal wide left. Undefeated Arizona wins by 3. Texas A&M at Rice. Freshman kick returner Leland McElroy upstaged everyone. Here he returns a kickoff, 93 yards for a touchdown. He returned another 88 yards for a score. Aggies with the Owls, 38-10. Michigan hosting the Illini. Todd Collins hits Derek Alexander. A school record 90-yard touchdown pass play. Wolverines in command, 21-10. But the Illini got the ball back after a turnover late in the 4th, trailing by 4. Johnny Johnson hits Jim Klein, a 15-yard strike. The Illini win at Michigan for the first time since 1968. 24-21 is the final. Here are other scores from Saturday. Michigan now in 8th place in the Big Ten. As always, Beano Cook has a great deal to say about yesterday's games, and thankfully, Dick Schaap is never at a loss for words either, so let's go back to Dick in New York. Dick?
Robin, Beano was also at the game where Mazeroski hit the home run, so
sure.
we both saw Ralph Terry make that pitch. And Beano, you got to be in a great mood this morning. For one thing, the baseball season ended last night, and for another, none of your top 5 teams lost yesterday. Of course, 2 of them didn't play, but why quibble? Beano, is there any chance Florida State or Notre Dame could stumble before they meet in South Bend on November 13th?
Well, Navy plays Notre Dame this Saturday. Even if they send the ships from Haiti to help Navy, it isn't going to help. It's going to be well, Notre Dame will probably take it easy in Navy. They usually do. But there's no chance Notre Dame will lose. There's no chance that Florida State will lose. Dick, this could happen when these 2 teams meet. It could be such a great game. If one team wins by 1 point, they might even have a rematch in the Fiesta Bowl. If they tie, they could have a rematch. It could happen. It's going to be a great game at a great place to have a great game.
You still think Notre Dame is going to win even though you rank Florida State #1?
We'll rank Florida State until they're beaten. Notre Dame, I think, will beat. I don't think Notre Dame's the better team. I think Notre Dame is the better team in South Bend on the 2nd Saturday in November. You don't want to go there. Also, if Notre Dame is the underdog, it'll be the first time in the history of Notre Dame And when they have a team with a perfect record in November, they are the underdog at home. That's unbelievable. Notre Dame with a perfect record, the underdog at home. People say Florida State will be a slight favorite.
Is there any way Notre Dame can stop Charlie Ward from winning the Heisman?
No, I think Ward will now win the Heisman. I thought Kevin McDougal had a chance because he's the Notre Dame quarterback. But no, Ward will win the Heisman Trophy. Don't even send out the ballots.
Just one word about the versatility of Alabama's David Palmer. He did everything yesterday, didn't he? Pass, catch, run, return, maybe sell programs.
If they had a decathlon champion, he would be it for college football. He's an unbelievable player. Last week, the two-point play against Tennessee kept Alabama in the running for the national title.
Okay, decathlon, that's 10 events. Give me just your top 5 teams this week.
I'm going to keep Auburn in 5th place. They didn't play, so why not? They have a perfect record. Nebraska, number 4. Remember, Nebraska beat UCLA on the road, 14-13. Ohio State, number 3. Ohio State has a shot at the national title, a very good shot at the national title. Number 2, Notre Dame, and number 1, Florida State.
Thank you, Bino. We'll all look forward to November the 13th. And now back to Robin.
And thank you, gentlemen. Still to come here on Sunday Sports Day. The snake-bitten Golden State Warriors were bitten again this week. This time, Tim Hardaway went down hard. A much happier time for the Gretzky family as big brother Wayne faced off against his little bro Brent. So we'll have plenty from the ice next, including more on those torrid Toronto Maple Leafs. They won their 8th straight on Thursday, tying an NHL record, a mark they hope to own outright last night. 8 games, 8 victories. On Thursday, the Toronto Maple Leafs tied an NHL record for consecutive wins to open the season. Last night, the Leafs took the ice for the 9th time this season, hoping to preserve their perfect record and set a record in the process. Pat Burns trying to put his team himself in the record books. No score in the second. Bill McDougal gives it away in his own end, and Mark Osborne puts it in. 1-0 Leafs. Then in the third, Osborne shoots, and the puck deflects off defenseman Chris Gratton's skate and into the net. 2-0 Leafs. The rest was up to Felix Potvin, and he came through. He saves Bob Beer's shot and robs Gratton on the rebound. The Lightning can't figure out a way to score, and the Leafs break the record with their 9th straight. Felix Potvin stopped 24 shots. His 3rd career shutout. He's 8-0 already this season. The Leafs will try to extend their streak to 10 games at Chicago Thursday night. Here are the rest of Saturday's results on the ice. The Devils also remain undefeated. It was all in the family for the Gretzky family this week on ice, and not a bad week at all for Chris Webber, as the Golden State Warriors gave him 74 million reasons to sign on the dotted line. Here's Carl Ravitch with the Week in Review.
Wayne Gretzky has played in 1,053 NHL games, but only one of them was against his younger brother. Wednesday night, the Great One faced off against Brent Gretzky, who was making his 2nd NHL appearance for the Tampa Bay Lightning. After 2 periods, Wayne was impressed.
He's playing probably better than I am right now at this point in time.
Whoa, Wayne. The Great One had a goal and 2 assists. Brent was shut out, and the Kings were 4-3 winners. NHL discipline swift and sure under new Vice President Brian Burke. 4 suspensions handed out on Monday. Chris Chelios, 4 games. Bob Probert and Bob Rouse, 4 games. And Hartford's Doug Huda, the headbutt, gets 5. A crime of a different sort was perpetrated Tuesday. An autographed Michael Jordan jersey was stolen from Chicago's Museum of Broadcasting, only to be recovered 2 days later in a Chicago sports memorabilia store. The jersey is valued at close to $5,000. Can things get any worse for the Golden State Warriors? One day after Sarunas Marciulionis underwent season-ending surgery on his right knee, Tim Hardaway blew out his left knee. The injury shook up Hardaway's psyche as well.
Happened so fast, I don't even know. It was one thing I know. I felt on the ground and couldn't even breathe. I was scared. I'm still scared.
Hardaway will miss the entire season. His injury came as a slap in the face for the Warriors, who had great expectations after signing Chris Webber. Webber signing a 15-year, $74.4 million deal. but it wasn't quite what he had hoped for.
I asked for the $100 million at the 1 year $100 million, but he wouldn't go for it.
The Utah Jazz gave Karl Malone what he wanted. After a series of outspoken complaints by Malone, the Jazz inked the mailman to a 2-year extension worth $9 million. And last, but certainly not least, Derek Coleman. He turned down an 8-year, $69 million offer from the Nets. Coleman's agent, Harold McDonald, said the proposal was, quote, credible, but added, it's not what we're looking for.
The dollar figures with these contracts are so unbelievable, it's like monopoly money. It can't be the real stuff. Leading the way is, of course, Larry Johnson's 12-year extension worth $84 million. Unlike LJ, Chris Webber and Anthony Hardaway haven't even played a game yet in the NBA. And believing there's more money out there with his face on it, Derek Coleman turned down the Nets' reported offer of $69 million. We'll get to last week's NFL action in just a bit. Dave Williams wasn't in action last Sunday for the Oilers. He decided the birth of his newborn child was more important. Sounds like a man with his priorities in order to me. But his decision sparked a heated debate nationwide this week. That's the subject of our face-off next. Then later in the NFL Weekend Review, it was the same result in the NFC Championship game rematch. The boys are indeed back.
Offensive tackle David Williams missed his game last Sunday because he was too busy in the labor room, catching the first pass of his life, his firstborn son. And not everyone in Houston was happy about that either. In fact, some of the Oilers were so mad they wanted to throw him in the stockade for being AWOL. See, they think not only did he let his buddies down by not showing up and doing his job, they're worried he's setting a bad example. Other NFL players might decide to wimp out and skip a game to get in touch with their feminine side. Oh no, a 2LT? Or they might attend those touchy-feely Iron John meetings where tough guys sit around the fire and beat the drum and cry. Could this be a kinder, gentler Chuck Cecil? Not to worry. About the only thing that's likely to change for the NFL is Williams has attracted a whole new fan club, and you can keep the quarterback. They just love that offensive tackle.
It is time for Face Off, our weekly war of words, wit, and wisdom. And 8 days ago, hardly anyone had heard of David Williams of the Houston Oilers. He was an offensive lineman, which in the NFL is as close as you can get to obscurity. Then, David Williams became a father, and while his teammates played in New England last Sunday, he stayed in Houston with his wife and newborn son. The Oilers docked him one game's pay, more than $100,000, and promptly made him famous. Was Williams right to stay with his wife and son and not try to catch a plane to Boston? Were the Oilers right to withhold his salary for the game he missed? Is Williams a hero? Is the team a villain? That's the subject of our face-off today between Skip Bayless and Mitch Albom, both of whom are entitled to their opinions, even though they are both bachelors who have never played in the NFL. And Mitch Albom leads off.
Well, Skip, I know you live in Dallas, but I didn't know you got your sense of family values from Dallas, the TV show. Only a cretin would say that David Williams deserves to be fined $110,000 for staying with his wife to have a baby after she had a miscarriage a year before. Instead of going to play the New England Patriots, they could have taken 10 guys off that team and still beaten the Patriots.
As usual, you don't have your facts straight. Let's get them straight. He could have done both. That's the whole point here. Oprah, Donahue, Albert Gore, for goodness sake, have made him the Lamaze Man of the Year, the Father of the Year, for doing something when he should have gone straight on to that game and been with his team. He let his team down. He made no effort.
Let his team down. Come on.
He could have chartered a plane for $7,500. He lost $111,000 in salary.
You're talking about a guy leaving the hospital 3 minutes after the baby is born. I count the fact that the baby was born, and then you take an hour or two to stay with the mother. Just because they were calling him in the delivery room to tell him to come play against the New England Patriots. You've got to be kidding me here.
6:25 the night before the baby's born. He could have chartered a plane the next morning. He made no effort. This is symptomatic of what's wrong with the Houston Oilers, the most talented team with no brains and no heart.
Symptomatic of what's wrong with the NFL. They say, oh, it's war and you must show up. I heard Bob Young, the line coach, say this is like World War II. He didn't let down his team. He didn't let down anybody. They could have taken a high road and said, we'll let it. It's good for the team.
He should have been with his wife and child. He should have been with his team.
Where do you draw the line? If the baby had been born Friday night, then should he have made the game on Sunday?
Well, 24 hours is a little... I would never make a game against the New England Patriots myself if I could avoid it. But let me make one quick point here. If a guy comes to the game, takes a stupid penalty at the beginning of the game and gets thrown out, they still pay him. If he's on drugs and rehabbing, they still pay him.
He only works 16 Sundays a year.
And you Texas oil men all feel the same.
I live in Dallas, not Texas.
More than we work.
Up next, a look at Joe Montana, still the cardiac kid at 37.
Last week was arguably the best card of the NFL season thus far. Week 7 featured a rematch of last year's NFC title game between the Niners and the Boys. And thanks to the Steelers, there are no undefeated teams left in the NFL. Chris Myers now with the NFL Week in Review.
The NFL's last unbeaten team, the Saints, fell, and they fell hard. Pittsburgh's defense forcing 5 turnovers, including this Rod Woodson interception and a 63-yard touchdown return. The Steelers routed New Orleans 37-14. As for New Orleans' perfect record, well, woot, there it went.
From start to finish, they kicked our butt. There wasn't any one a play that was a turning point. I mean, it was just an ass-kicking right from the beginning. I mean, I don't know any other way to put it. I mean, I don't like to say that about our football team, but we got our ass kicked today.
You just make the connection with the fans. I feel like I'm in WWF or something. I mean, they're screaming, hollering, hit me with 2x4s or something.
A rematch of the NFC title game produced the same result. Dallas made the big plays and defeated San Francisco 26-17. Michael Irvin stole the show with a career-high 12 receptions, highlighted by a 36-yard juggling touchdown catch. 2 NFC East matchups producing historically unexpected results. The Redskins succumbed meekly to Phoenix. The Cardinals' 30-point win gave them a series sweep of Washington for the first time since 1974. The Giants had managed just 1 victory over Philadelphia in their last 10 meetings, but the Eagles were no match this time in the Meadowlands. New York, now alone in first place, won easily 21-10 over fading Philly.
Defensively, you're just not as dominant as you used to be, you know, across the board. And it's just tough to win under these circumstances.
Where did that dominance go?
What do you mean, where did it go? Don't ask no trick questions.
No, I'm just saying today, the intensity and the tackling.
Have you seen that dominance at all this year?
Quarterback roulette continued for Detroit. Rodney Peete, again the man for the moment. His 2 touchdown passes helped end Seattle's 3-game winning streak. And the Vinny era may have begun for Cleveland. Testaverde matching a career high with 3 scoring strikes in his first start for the Browns, a 28-17 win in Cincinnati. And then there's the Warren Moon story. He may have started on the Pine, but after an injury to Cody Carlson, he came to the Oilers' rescue, helping them defeat New England and end a 3-game slide. Mel Gray demonstrated the ups and downs of a special teamer. After being upended on a costly kickoff return, the Detroit Lion redeemed himself by racing 95 yards for a score in the 3rd quarter of Detroit's romp over the Seahawks. More major injuries this week. Mike Sherrard broke his hip on this play against the Eagles. The Giant receiver expected to miss the remainder of the season. Phoenix rookie running back Garrison Hurst could miss as many as 5 weeks after injuring his left knee in the Cardinals' win. Jets defensive end Jeff Lageman says he'll continue to play despite a report that a doctor advised him to sit out 6 weeks because of a disc problem in his neck. Comings and goings on the trade front. Pittsburgh running back Tim Worley was shipped to Chicago for 2 conditional picks, while Tampa Bay holdout offensive tackle Paul Gruber, after nearly being dealt to the Raiders, ended up re-signing with the Bucs for 4 more years. And finally, Joe Montana led his team to a 4th quarter comeback win for the 27th time in his career, this time with a little help from fellow veteran Marcus Allen. And John Elway may have thought he had another dramatic 4th quarter win, but Jeff Jager's 53-yard field goal with just 16 seconds left helped the Raiders beat the Broncos 23-20.
Coming up next, the deadly controversy from the movie The Program and why this scene was removed from the film. Back in a moment. Like Joe Carter last night back in 1960, Game 7, the Pirates and the Yanks, Ralph Terry pitching, and Bill Mazeroski connects for the game winner and series clincher, and Dick Schaap was there. 1975 Game 6, the Reds and the Red Sox. Carlton Fisk with this memorable moment, using a little body English to keep the ball fair. Then in 88, Game 1, the A's and the Dodgers, a hobbled Kirk Gibson hits the game winner off of Dennis Eckersley, and Gibby limps around the bases, pumping those arms, his only at-bat in the series. 91, Game 6, the Braves and the Twins. Kirby Puckett takes Charlie Leibrandt over the left field wall, and the Twins would win the series in 7. Memorable, memorable moments. Yes, the Toronto Blue Jays were favored to win the World Series, but you have to give the Phillies a lot of credit. They may not look like your typical Major League team, but they have a lot to be proud of this season. This morning, though, Mitch Williams probably finds little consolation in that fact. Let's go back to Dan Patrick in Toronto with more on the Wild Thing.
Robin, thank you, and welcome back to Skydome. We've been talking about Joe Carter's dramatic home run to end Game 6 in the 1993 World Series. The dramatic series turned in by Paul Molitor, the MVP. But on the other side, we have to look at Mitch Williams. He lost 2 of the 4 games for the Phillies, had an ERA over 20. Jimmy Roberts caught up with the Wild Thing following Game 6.
After it all, he sat bravely at his locker and talked about what will surely be remembered as one of the most dramatic moments in World Series history.
I'm not going to go home and hang my head all winter long. We had a very good season. We came up short. I came up short here in the World Series. I didn't do the job I was supposed to do. The team battled and fought, and to take the lead in this game was unbelievable. And I gave it back to them. But there ain't anybody can say anything bad about this team. We heard all year what a bad bunch of guys we were. We had long hair, we had beards. Well, our team fought and struggled and did what they had to do in this series to win the series. And the bottom line is I let us down in big situations. But I can carry that burden. That's my job, too. I dealt with the good. I can deal with the bad.
Mitch has got a lot of heart. A lot of heart, and he'll take the ball every time. He's a competitor. He just came up short tonight. You know, it's unfortunate, but you know, I'll take Mitch on my team anytime. He's saved 40 games for us this year.
He's given us our share of thrills too in this clubhouse, but bottom line is, if it wasn't for Mitch, we wouldn't be here. And we're not blaming Mitch for anything. We never will.
I feel very sorry for Mitch Williams, because without Mitch Williams, we wouldn't be where we were.
As if the losses to end games 4 and 6 weren't enough, sandwiched in between was a death threat.
You know, it's still a game here, and the guy's got a family and you know, people he cares about, and he's at home, and you know, you got police around, and he's got to get a gun out of it. You know, keep a gun around his house to feel safe and stuff, and it's tough for a guy. You know, there's enough pressure here on the field.
In the World Series, the winners get their rings and a trophy. The losers, well, at least they get the memory of having played in what probably is the greatest games of their career. But for Mitch Williams, that memory, in all likelihood, will be the worst part about the entire experience. Reporting from the World Series, I'm Jimmy Roberts, ESPN.
Peter Gammons, Dave Campbell join me once again. I don't think it's fair to single out Mitch Williams, not only for Game 6, but the entire World Series. If you take away Roger Mason from the Phillies bullpen, everybody else was pretty pathetic.
They really were, Dan. Games 1, 4, and 6, the bullpen fell apart. And in contrast, in all 3 of those games, Toronto's bullpen was the difference. In Game 1, Leiter came into the game at 4-4 in the 6th inning. He and Ward, 4 innings, no earned runs. In Game 4, after all the chaos, Toronto took the lead 15-14. Tillman and Ward blew them away for 6 straight outs. And last night, Leiter and Ward, 2 2/3 innings of shutout ball. Their bullpen was the difference in the series.
Mitch Williams, pretty select company, guys who have given up dramatic home runs in postseason play.
Yeah, you go all the way back to Ralph Frank in 1951, the play out to Bobby Thompson. He's seemed to have gotten along with his life just fine. It hadn't affected him. Ralph Terry, 1960. I jump ahead to 1976 with Mark Littell, the ball champ sit. 1978, Mike Torres with Bucky Dent. But, you know, the one guy, Ralph Terry, came back 2 years later, pitched Game 7 of the World Series, got the line drive out from McCovey, went all the way to win 1-0. he had a chance to redeem himself. Chances of Mitch being able to be in that position again, I think, are remote. If anybody, at least on the surface, can handle this, I think he can.
For Peter and Dave, I'm Dan Patrick. Plenty more coming up this morning. Now back to you, Robin.
All right, guys, we'll look for you on SportsCenter. Still to come, Vinny Pazienza's opponent isn't the only one hurting when he steps into the ring. His mom is in agony as well. You'll see for yourself later.
And I can jump in a car and go down there because I might happen to know the kid. I can't take out a manual and look at the manual and say that this kid is a recruitable athlete or not a recruitable athlete. And that's where all of us are restricted, and that's where we're frustrated, because we feel that athletics has far more significance to us than just the competition that we have amongst each other. And that's what we've been restricted to.
That was Georgetown coach John Thompson. He, along with other members of the Black Coaches Association, met with members of Congress on Tuesday to discuss NCAA rules and practices they consider discriminatory. Problems on the court, and a major problem with the movie entitled The Program. It's about a fictional college football program. It hasn't been a box office success, and there's one scene in the movie that has been both a public relations and, more importantly, a real-life disaster. Bob Lee explains.
This is fantasy.
Hey, Bud, they're talking about how good I am under pressure.
This is fact. A Long Island football star seriously injured because he attempted a movie stunt in real life.
He saw the movie. I don't know who he saw the movie with. They knew what he was doing. He didn't relate to too many people at the accident what he was doing. He just did it.
There were talks that they were talking about the movie, and when he did it, I don't really think he meant to lay down in the middle of the road when he, because he didn't see the car coming.
But Mike Macias did lay down Saturday night. He may never walk again. Nearly 100 local youths were milling about when Macias and perhaps several others laid down in the middle of the road.
Any kid who actually saw the accident, the impact, and is absolutely traumatized by it.
Disney said its movie did not advocate an irresponsible act, but that it's impossible to ignore someone may have recklessly chosen to imitate it. The movie will be re-edited, but the reality at Syosset High School is that a football captain is paralyzed.
Don't let movies, lead your life. I mean, like I said to another reporter that, Sylvester Stallone, he jumps from one cliff to another cliff. That doesn't mean you have to go out the next day and jump off a cliff.
It was a dumb thing that happened, and, it's just, nobody should do it again. And right now, we're just hoping for his recovery and his well-being and all that.
And I just wish everybody would just understand how serious it is of what he did. He did something stupid. Nobody's going to condone what he did. But, if anybody out there is deciding to copying something, just don't do it. It's stupid.
The program will also be a topic of much discussion on the Sports Reporters at 11 a.m. Eastern. Still to come here on Sports Weekly. Eric Dickerson officially called it quits this week. He found his way into the end zone a lot, but he lost a lot of respect along the way in recent years. We'll explain later. You may have missed this week. Eric Dickerson officially retired on Wednesday. His doctors felt a bulging disc in his neck could lead to a serious injury, so Dickerson decided to call it quits. 5 years ago, Dickerson's retirement announcement would have been headline news. Instead, it was buried in the back pages. Dickerson's style may have been abrasive to some, but his stats prove he's one of the few worthy of a spot in Canton, Ohio one day.
Only thing I need is daylight. Give me daylight and I'll take care of the rest.
Eric Dickerson found enough daylight during his 11-year career with the Rams, Colts, Raiders, and Falcons to become one of the most prolific running backs in NFL history. He broke the 1,000-yard mark 7 times, and in 1984 set the single-season record with 2,105 yards. His career standards place him near the top in yardage, rushing titles, and 100-yard games.
I'm a very good football player. And when I look at my records, so whoever looks at them, I put my stats next to anyone's stats. No one in the National Football League has ever went for 1,800 yards 3 years, except me. No back has ever went for 7 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons, except me. I mean, I have records, they go on and on.
The one thing people need to remember about Eric Dickerson is that had he retired in '88 and gone on, he would have been one of the top 3 or 4 thought guys of all time. Sayers, Payton, Brown, Dickerson, Campbell. Instead, by hanging on like he did and by making some financial decisions like he did, he may be remembered just as another running back, which is a real injustice.
It's hard to imagine Eric Dickerson as just another running back. Although his productivity had slipped in the last 4 years, his overall numbers place him among the elite.
One thing I can say about the Hall of Fame is that only the select go to the Hall of Fame. You know, a lot of players will have Super Bowl rings. Some players that won't even play will have Super Bowl rings. It's not like only the select will go to the Hall of Fame. And hopefully one day I will be one of the select.
Coming up, oh, what we put our mothers through, especially in the case of Vinny Pazienza. A touch flicks on his opponent in the ring, but you don't see the pain his mom Louise is in every time her little boy fights. She can't even stand to be ringside, so she stays at home in Rhode Island. Such was the case the last time Pazienza fought, and our Jimmy Roberts was with the Tasmanian Devil prior to his fight in Atlantic City with Lloyd Hunnigan.
24 hours ago, Vinny Pazienza had to sweat off 5 stubborn pounds at the last minute to make the 158-pound weight limit for his fight with Lloyd Hunnigan.
Weigh-ins are my worst moment in life.
Today, he is 14 pounds heavier and hearing the sweetest sound of all.
Room service. No bows, Grand Campy. Hey, how you guys doing today?
Vin, let me ask you something. At any point today, do you talk to your mom or do you wait till after the fight?
I don't like to talk to her right before I fight because she gets all mushy, man. I don't like that.
Yeah, what does she say? Don't get hurt.
Don't get hurt. Be careful. I love you. Keep your hands up. I'm like, Ma, don't worry, man. It's a fight. I'm not going into combat with guns.
Meanwhile, 350 miles to the north, Louise Pazienza is engaged in her own fight day ritual. Vinny might be hungry. Louise is definitely not.
A lot of people, when they get nervous, they eat. I haven't eaten since yesterday.
In 2 parallel worlds focused on one event, the waiting is the hardest part.
I hope this fight don't go the distance if it starts really going on till like 10:30.
Boy, it must be a madhouse down at Atlantic City, huh?
He is number 1 in my book, your book, our book, their book.
Wrestling's captain Lou Albano is only one of many who, through the course of the evening, stopped by to wish Vinny luck.
I'm all right, man. Good luck. I know you can do it, man.
Things are starting to pick up in Rhode Island, too.
I gotta put that on now. See if they're gonna. I gotta put that tape on. Oh, Vinny. Vinny must be upset that he's not fighting yet.
Let's beat this guy's ass and have some fun.
Finally, at 11 o'clock, Vinny makes his way into the ring, and Louise makes her way into the kitchen for good.
And we begin round number 1.
Get him off fast, Vinny. Get him out of here fast.
I'm just crazy. This fight better end now.
There you go. That change things around, champ.
Did he win this round?
Hey, come on.
Can Pazienza finish him? A fighter cannot be saved by the bell.
Oh, my God. Keep him there, Vinny. Keep him there.
What's going on, Rhonda?
The evening wears on, and Louise has a feeling.
Maybe my son will knock him out in the 10th round.
Who knows his son better than his mother? Even from 350 miles, 4 states, and 1 kitchen away.
It's over, Louise. It's over, honey. He won.
You okay? You okay? No cuts. No cuts. No cuts. Don't worry about it.
The winner by TKO, he's the Tasmanian Devil, Vinny Pazienza.
Vinny, Mommy says you're going to win in the 10th round.
The fight now over, there's only one thing left to do.
Collect from Angelo. Okay. Louise.
Angelo? Hi.
You would have killed him. Didn't stop and would have killed him. He was going after him, man. He had them eye for it.
Oh, the target was on that time. He looked great. He was ready.
We'll see you tomorrow. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Okay, take care. Tell Vinny I love him. Okay, bye-bye, honey.
The ordeal is over. Until the next time. Louise is drained. Once, a long time ago, she wanted her son to be a priest. It would have made following his professional career so much easier. But in the afterglow of this torturous evening, she doesn't seem to mind.
Can I let Vinny give this up? I mean, for how I feel. See the glory of that win? That's everything. I'd go through this 1,000,001 times. This is what he wants, and God bless him.
Vinny's dear mom, Louise, has to go through the same routine Tuesday. Pazienza is scheduled to fight Robbie Sims in a middleweight bout. Keep in mind, I'll be back in 30 minutes with the Sunday morning edition of SportsCenter. Chris Berman will be along with news and notes from the NFL.